How's it going, guys? I had an idea that I wanted to share. The idea is something I think a lot of people have fun with, and that's playing as the Grim Reaper. I thought it'd be cool to have a killer that collects the survivors' souls. I don't know if behavior would do this, but it'd be cool if they actually reconstructed the basement to be more like a little fire pit. And what happens is the Reaper would come up, hit the survivor, and instead of actually causing damage to the survivor, the power would just take the soul from the survivor. And then while carrying a soul, the killer would get a 200% speed boost because they have to physically take the soul to the fire pit, drop it off there, and then they could proceed to continue to attack other survivors. So while carrying a soul, they're not allowed to drop the soul. They cannot attack another survivor with while carrying the soul. And basically, the what do you call it? And they can't do no basic, basically no basic attacks. Simply the task of taking the soul. That's supposed to be to emphasize what the Grim Reaper's purpose is, to capture, souls. So from there, once a soul is captured, only the survivor whose soul was captured can retrieve their own soul. So they got to go through the tedious task of retrieving their own soul. While the soul is burning, there's a 3-minute duration time for a soul to be completely engulfed in flame. At that point, if it is completely engulfed in flame, the survivor's physical body dies automatically. They disintegrate right in front of the other survivors or wherever they are on the map. Now, to alleviate camping of any source and things like that, the killer capturing a soul drops the soul off. The soul is in the fire pit, but while a survivor has no soul, the side effect is that they cannot see physically other survivors. They cannot see them. They can see their actions, such as the results of their actions, rather. They can see a generator being done. They can see a hook being dismantled, used, or whatever have you. All of those things they can see around them. But it's as if the world is alive, but there's nobody alive in it. It's almost like they're in purgatory. So that survivor, the soulless survivor, is alone, seemingly. They can continue to do normal tasks such as just doing the generators and sabotaging a hook, but they will not be able to see the other survivors that have their souls doing that. Also, the killer, when a soul is burning, they are within 20 meters of a soul. They can only be within the proximity of within 20 meters for about 20 seconds. So the way that would play out is, let's say they have to put another soul in the basement or fire pit or whatever have you. The first 10 seconds simply stops the soul from burning while they're in proximity. And then once the timer reaches to 20 seconds of the killer being within proximity of that burning soul, they would basically the soul will disappear from where it is in the fire pit and go back to the physical body of the survivor it came from. Just to make it fair, we don't want it to be too OP. Then any survivor that does have their soul, they also could still be hooked by any means and traditional means, basic attacks, falling down 2 times, dying state, being hooked. Now, the perks that complement this approach, the first one will be called Cursed or Damned. The killer can stare at a survivor for 10 seconds and cast curse tokens on the survivor. This could be divided any way they see fit, but this will be once per trial. In other words, once the Reaper does this, it's done. So 15 tokens, except the only exception is that they cannot cast it on the obsession. So now there are perks in the game that allow a person to juggle who the obsession is. That could work in a survivor's favor, meaning once you become the obsession, you no longer have whatever curse penalty you had gotten, because it's going to be counteracted by the fact that you're becoming the complete target of the killer. I thought that would be a nice touch. So continuing on, yeah, so up to 15 tokens with the exception of the obsession to cause them with minus 15% penalty to healing others. So this penalty is strictly to healing other survivors. This is supposed to impede their ability to do these altruistic actions. It's going to be a double-edged sword because the idea behind the power is to make it so that it's difficult to heal others, meaning to do a good deed for other people is supposed to cause a sacrifice for the player, the survivor, right? So it's supposed to make it difficult to fulfill altruistic actions, maybe even deliberately cause chaos, or make it feel like everyone's going mad. Because you're going to see the approach would be to have all survivors scrambling to do all of these good things so that death will not be imminent for you near the end of the match. Otherwise, this is what happens, reading the other perks. The second perk is Judged. Survivors have an unsettling feeling like the end is near and see brief illusions of hooks that aren't really there. The killer has a total of 6 illusory hooks that can be placed wherever they see fit, of course, in reasonable places in the map, of course. And the illusion remains until the survivor interacts with it, such as trying to sabotage it, basically, right? And they will find that it either will like dissipate into like a puff of black mist or something like that. And it will be little markers, small markers, subtle, but there for people that are observant to see that, okay, that's not a real hook. But during the chaos, sometimes you may not notice that, right? And so you'll go around thinking you're about to sabotage a hook to keep the killer from hooking a survivor on it, and it's not even real. So now you wasted your time. But if they have things like, let's say, Saboteur would make it possible for a person to distinguish between what's a real hook and what's the fake hook, just to make that also a balance. So yeah, the killer will be able to see the difference between the real ones, also the real ones and the fake ones, and the illusory hooks show up as red to the killer, like the aura, if you will. The illusory hooks will also have a subtle identifying death mark for survivors to notice if they're observant, like I said. Then we have the third perk, which is called Heelbound, which is a play on the word hellbound. Now, this correlates to what I said before about making altruism difficult. So here's how it goes. This seems like a powerful perk, but obviously people are normally doing these things anyway, such as unhooking, healing each other, healing themselves, but that, even though that won't count, you'll see why. And also picking up people from the dying state. So, or taking a protection hit, actually, too. So any survivor that has not carried out an altruistic action or a good deed, right, have to do 3 of these, 1 of each. The good deeds, like fully healing a survivor, and I emphasize fully healing a survivor. It won't be a partial heal. You have to fully have helped them survive. Just like when you unhook a person and then it says that they it's a successful save. So fully healing a survivor, protecting another survivor, and unhooking at least 1 other survivor is condemned. So in other words, if the person has not done these 3 to 4 actions, they will be condemned with an immediate exposed status and also automatically receiving 2 hook marks. All right, so that's what happens. This happens after the gates have been activated. So once the gates are triggered, that Heelbound activates. Okay, so that's the whole point of it. Now, and the purpose of this again was to make it so that, you're going up against the Grim Reaper, so you want it to feel imminent. You want it to feel like it's creepy, chaotic, scary, in the sense that you don't want to die. And I mean, at first, the dredge seemed to be insurmountable, right? I mean, it's a killer that could control the darkness, see in the dark, teleport between cabinets, which was usually the safe haven for a lot of survivors to hide in, and he could teleport. That seemed like, whoa. And he's a black mist who could technically blend into shadows. It seemed like it would have been OP when you actually first read it on paper and hear it, right? But he's in the game, and he's playable and doable, and he can be beaten. So I feel like playing as a Grim Reaper would be a really great addition to Dead by Daylight if Behavior sees fit to add something like that. I think his appearance would be cool to have him be a misty hooded flying character with the usual scythe, or Scythe, and the face is either shrouded in darkness with only glowing eyes coming out of it, maybe no glowing eyes, different costumes, varying costumes to really emphasize the creepiness. And yeah, I look forward to seeing them do something like this. I think it would be amazing. While also Survivor has no soul, so you seem like you're in a world by yourself. You're seeing generators being done. You can still hear all of the screams of survivors, but you just can't see. This is like a whole new level to being blind, right? I think that would be dope. And then once you retrieve your soul, all things go back to normal. You still have your chance to get out if you can. But during that time, while you're busy trying to save yourself, the other survivors still need to also be saved. So this causes for you to be judged. Will you save yourself strictly, or will you sacrifice yourself to save your survivors? What will you do? You know, that is, I think that's just a great different approach to playing Dead by Daylight, and it'll add some more life to the game that's already, been around for a while. So anyway, thank you for listening. I think everybody have fun. And if you don't agree with something, I'm more than you're more than welcome to offer your feedback as to what you think should be tweaked or whatever like that. Obviously no idea is perfect, but it's a start, and I hope everybody's open-minded enough to try to help us flesh this out so we can see this come to fruition. All right, thanks again.